A German shepherd's instinct saved a family today. When the law saw a criminal, Angel saw a mother's love, her instinct guiding her through the truth. What would you do? Break the law to save your child? And would your dog know the truth before anyone else? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales. Let's begin, where instincts and loyalty rewrite the rules. Officer Jake Carter and his German Shepherd Rex were an unbeatable team. They had worked side by side at Chicago O'Hare Airport for over 3 years. Carter, a seasoned officer, had seen everything, from smuggling attempts to frantic passengers, yet nothing had ever fazed him. His bond with Rex was unshakable. The German Shepherd had always followed every command to perfection, until that night. It was another quiet evening shift at the airport, and Rex was alert, as always. Carter and his partner had just finished a routine inspection when the passengers from a delayed international flight started filtering through customs. It was a typical night, travelers pulling suitcases, hurrying to their next destinations, unaware of the diligent officers ensuring their safety. But something was different this time. As Rex sat next to Carter, his head suddenly jerked up, and his ears twitched. Carter knew this was no ordinary shift. Rex's behavior was always precise, calculated, but tonight the dog was on edge. Without warning, Rex broke the calm. He bolted from Carter's side, his powerful paws thudding against the tiled floor as he raced toward a woman with a baby stroller. "Rex, no!" Carter shouted, but the dog was already in motion. The woman's eyes widened in terror as the massive German Shepherd charged toward her, barking loudly. She shrieked, her hands clutching the stroller as if to protect her child from the animal. The crowd around them scattered, panicking at the sight of a dog charging wildly through the terminal. "Stay calm. Everything's fine," Carter called, rushing toward the scene. But Rex wouldn't stop. His barking echoed off the walls, each bark more frantic than the last. Carter's heart raced as he tried to get control of the situation. Rex, the dog who had never once broken command, was now fully focused on the stroller. His sharp eyes never left it, and his body was taut with energy, as if the dog sensed something unseen to human eyes. Carter felt a cold sweat run down his back. This wasn't normal. "Please, keep that dog away from my baby," the woman cried, her voice high with panic. Carter knelt down to Rex's level, trying to get his attention, but the dog remained unyielding. It wasn't like Rex to act out. He was a professional, trained for years to detect threats. Yet here he was, stubbornly guarding a stroller, as though it held a secret. Finally, Carter reached out and gently pulled back the baby blanket. His breath caught as his eyes fell on something shocking, a hidden gun, a cold, heavy weapon tucked beneath the baby, wrapped carefully in layers of fabric. The woman's face turned pale. Her hands trembled as she backed away. But Carter didn't let go of the situation. He called for backup, his mind racing. How could she have hidden something like this? The baby was her child. There was no way she was part of some criminal operation. Was it a mistake? Or had the woman somehow been tricked into this? The woman, her voice shaky, finally spoke. "It's not what it looks like. Please, I wasn't planning anything. I didn't mean to." Rex remained at her side, his gaze unwavering, his nose twitching as he inhaled deeply. Carter had known for years that Rex was more than just a dog. The K9 had an uncanny ability to sense things others couldn't. He wasn't just trained to detect drugs or explosives. Rex could feel the truth in ways that words couldn't explain. And right now, Rex wasn't acting like the dog who would find evidence for the law. He was acting like a dog who was protecting someone. "Ma'am," Carter said, trying to piece the situation together. "What's going on here?" "I'm not a criminal," the woman sobbed, her voice breaking. "I'm running from my husband. He's abusive. He said he would take my baby away. I had to leave, but I needed protection. The gun, it's for protection. It's the only way I could keep him away." Carter was taken aback. He had expected a different answer. But this was something he hadn't seen before. Rex had sensed the fear. It wasn't just the smell of metal or the odd behavior of the woman that made him react. It was the desperation, the fear, the need for safety. Rex hadn't just stopped her for a criminal act. He had stopped her to protect a mother and child from something much darker. Rex had broken his training tonight, not because he didn't understand the rules, but because his instincts had guided him to the truth. The law may have seen a potential criminal, but Rex had seen a mother's love. As the backup arrived and the situation was handled, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that Rex had done more than just his job. The K9 had saved a family tonight, and it was clear that sometimes instincts speak louder than any command. Rex wasn't just any police dog. He was different, even from the other K9s at the airport. Most of the working dogs were incredibly skilled, trained for specific tasks, detecting drugs, explosives, or weapons. But Rex had something special, something that went beyond training. He had a sixth sense. Officer Jake Carter had seen it in Rex from the very beginning. When they first met, Rex was just a pup, abandoned in a shelter with little hope for the future. Most people thought he was too unpredictable, too wild to become a working dog. But Carter saw something in him, an instinct that the other trainers couldn't understand. When Carter first brought Rex home, the dog was skittish, uncertain of the world around him. But Carter didn't give up. He saw potential in Rex, something beyond the typical obedience that other dogs displayed. Rex's ability to sense the emotions of people was uncanny. Where other dogs followed commands with mechanical precision, Rex seemed to understand more deeply. He could sense fear, anxiety, even when someone was lying. At first, Carter couldn't believe it. One day during a routine training session, Rex started growling at a fellow officer who had just passed him. It was unusual behavior, but when Carter spoke to the officer, the man reluctantly admitted he had been hiding a personal issue. He was going through a divorce, and it was weighing heavily on his mind. It wasn't that Rex knew the details, but the dog had sensed his stress and unease. That was the moment Carter realized that Rex wasn't just a dog following commands. Rex was a dog who could feel the emotions of those around him. Over time, Rex became Carter's most trusted partner. While most dogs were trained to react to physical threats, Rex had an uncanny ability to read people. He could tell when something was wrong even before it happened. Carter would notice Rex's behavior change. His ears would stand up, his tail would stiffen, and his eyes would focus on a person, an object, or even a location. It wasn't just his training. It was as though Rex could sense danger, dishonesty, and the hidden intentions of people in ways that no one else could. That night at the airport, when Rex had acted out of character and lunged at the stroller, Carter knew something was off. It wasn't like Rex to break his training. The dog had always been calm and controlled, but tonight Rex had reacted with an urgency that Carter hadn't seen before. Before the passengers even came through customs, Rex had been restless. He paced back and forth, whining softly as if he could feel something coming. Carter thought it was just a case of nerves. Maybe Rex was tired from the long day. But now, as he watched his partner growl at the stroller, he began to understand. Rex wasn't reacting to a physical threat. He was reacting to something deeper, something emotional. Rex could sense Emma Davis's fear, the panic that gripped her every time she looked over her shoulder. And it wasn't just fear, it was desperation. Rex had known, even before Carter had, that the woman wasn't just a nervous traveler. She was running from something far darker. In the weeks leading up to that night, Carter had noticed something strange about Rex's behavior. He had been more on edge than usual, refusing to eat at certain times, becoming fixated on specific people in the crowd. Rex's behavior had been erratic, but Carter hadn't known what to make of it. Now looking back, Carter realized that Rex had been trying to tell him something. The dog had been sensing Emma's distress long before they even met. The moment Rex had lunged at the stroller, Carter knew that his dog wasn't just acting out of his usual routine. Rex was protecting someone. The way he had barked, the way he had refused to stop. It was like the dog had sensed the danger in the air. Rex had acted as a protector, a silent guardian, standing between a vulnerable mother and whatever threat lay behind her fear. It was an unsettling thought. In a world where logic, evidence, and rules governed everything, Rex's instincts seemed to defy all expectations. Here was a dog who had been trained to follow commands, but instead, he had acted on something far more complex, his deep understanding of the emotions and fears of those around him. As Carter watched Rex stand steadfast next to Emma's stroller, he felt a deep sense of respect for the dog. Rex had done what no human could have. He had sensed the truth that wasn't visible to the naked eye. Later, as they sat in the car, driving back from the airport with Emma in custody, Carter reflected on Rex's behavior. The German Shepherd's instincts had guided him through a situation that defied logic. He had known before anyone else that Emma wasn't a criminal. She was a mother trying to protect her child, and Rex had understood that from the very beginning. Carter knew deep down that Rex's sixth sense wasn't just a skill, it was a gift, and it had saved a life that night. Emma Davis stood at the customs checkpoint with her baby in a stroller, looking around nervously. She kept adjusting her jacket as if trying to shake off an invisible chill. Her eyes darted from person to person, avoiding direct contact, and her hands gripped the stroller handle so tightly that her knuckles turned white. To an observer, Emma appeared as just another tired mother trying to navigate the chaos of the busy airport with a child in tow. But Officer Jake Carter could see something was wrong. Rex, his German Shepherd partner, had been pacing beside him, his alert eyes never leaving Emma and the stroller. The dog's behavior had been off all night, but now as they approached Emma, Rex stiffened, his ears perking up. Carter had seen Rex react to situations like this before. His instincts were never wrong. Rex could tell when someone was hiding something, and right now he was focused entirely on Emma. Emma's unease only grew as Rex slowly walked toward the stroller. She tensed up, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Carter noticed her eyes flicking to the side and her fingers twitched as if she wanted to push the stroller away from the dog. Then she spoke, her voice tight and filled with panic. "Please keep that dog away from my baby," she pleaded, her words rushed and high-pitched. "He's just tired from the flight. He's not used to traveling." But Rex wouldn't back down. The dog's nose was already sniffing the air around the stroller, his paws planted firmly on the ground. Carter could see the dog's fur standing on end, his body language signaling that something was amiss. Carter frowned, sensing that something wasn't right about the whole situation. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to check your stroller," Carter said calmly but firmly, his hand resting lightly on Rex's harness. He kept his voice even, trying to reassure Emma that the situation was under control. But Emma's reaction was not what Carter expected. She froze for a moment, her face going pale, and then, almost instinctively, she took a step back. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking. "He's just tired. It's nothing. You don't need to check. Please." Carter's gut told him to press on. He couldn't ignore Rex's behavior, nor could he dismiss the growing tension in Emma's eyes. Something was happening, something deeper than just a tired traveler and her child. Emma's refusal, her panicked reactions, none of it seemed to fit the situation. Rex, meanwhile, wasn't backing down. The dog's growls were barely audible, but Carter could feel the intensity behind them. This wasn't just a routine search. Rex was telling him that something was hidden, something important that needed to be found. "Ma'am," Carter said again, his voice firmer now, "I understand you're worried, but I need to do this for your safety and the safety of everyone else here." Emma's hands shook as she gripped the stroller more tightly, her fingers turning a deep shade of white. "I'm telling you, he's just tired, please," she repeated, her words increasingly desperate. "Please don't make me go through this." But Rex was insistent. The dog's nose nudged closer to the stroller, and then, without any warning, he jumped. Rex's paws landed on the edge of the stroller, and before Carter could stop him, the German Shepherd's nose lifted the edge of the baby's blanket. Carter's heart skipped a beat. Underneath the blanket, hidden in the folds of the stroller, was a gun. The metal glinted under the overhead lights, an undeniable sign of danger. Carter's mind raced as he processed what he was seeing. Why would a mother have a gun concealed under her baby's blanket? Why would Emma, a woman who seemed so terrified, be hiding something so dangerous? "Step away from the stroller, ma'am," Carter said, his voice a little sharper now. He was already reaching for his radio, preparing to call for backup. Emma took a step back, her eyes wide, still in shock. I didn't want," she stammered, but the words seemed to get stuck in her throat. Carter kept his eyes on her, but his mind was racing. The gun. Why had she been carrying it? Had she been planning to use it? Was she involved in something criminal? Or was she simply in over her head? The mother's tears began to fall, but they weren't the tears of a criminal. They were the tears of someone who had been hiding something much more personal, much more painful. Emma had been hiding a truth deeper than anyone could have expected, a truth that Rex had sensed long before Carter had. "Why did you have the gun?" Carter asked, his tone softening as he realized that something was wrong. "What's going on?" Emma's shoulders sagged, and she finally spoke. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice trembling. "I wasn't smuggling it. I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I was just trying to protect my baby." Carter could feel the weight of her words, the sadness and fear in them. As the reality of the situation began to unfold, he realized that Rex hadn't just sniffed out a crime. He had sensed something deeper. Rex had recognized that Emma wasn't a criminal. She was a mother in distress, and her love for her child had driven her to hide a weapon, not for violence, but for protection. Officer Jake Carter stood silently beside the stroller, his hand still resting on Rex's harness, as Emma Davis stood a few feet away, her face pale and full of regret. The air in the customs area seemed to grow heavier with every passing second, the usual hustle and bustle of the airport dimming in comparison to the weight of the situation unfolding. Rex, having already uncovered the gun, was now watching Emma with his intelligent, knowing eyes. His ears were still alert, but his stance had softened. There was no more growling, no more tension. The dog had done his job, but Carter's mind was racing. What had just happened? Was Emma truly the criminal she appeared to be? Emma's hands trembled at her sides as she stared down at the floor, unable to meet Carter's eyes. Her breath came in short bursts, her body language betraying her inner turmoil. Carter watched her carefully, his experienced instincts telling him there was more to this story than a simple gun smuggling operation. "I wasn't going to hurt anyone," Emma said quietly, her voice shaking. "I swear. I had no choice." Carter's expression softened. "Then why were you hiding the gun under your baby's blanket?" he asked, his voice gentle but probing. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Just tell me what's really going on." Emma finally raised her eyes, locking them with Carter's for the first time since they'd started speaking. Her gaze was filled with desperation, a flicker of fear, but also something else, a deep, painful honesty that Carter could not ignore. She looked as though the weight of the world had been on her shoulders, and now that she had finally found someone who might listen, the truth began to spill out. "My name is Emma Davis," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm from a small town in Indiana, and I've been running for a long time. I'm not a criminal. I've never been. But I had to protect my son." Carter listened intently, motioning for her to continue. Emma took a deep breath, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "My husband, Mark, he's been abusive for years. It started small, just the usual stuff, the shouting, the name-calling. But then it got worse, much worse. He started threatening me, threatening to take Liam away from me. I didn't know what to do. He said he'd make sure I'd never see my son again." Emma's voice cracked, and she paused for a moment, trying to regain control of her emotions. Carter could feel her pain, but there was something in her eyes, something fierce, that told him she was telling the truth. "I couldn't let him have Liam," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "He's my everything. I would do anything for him, even if it meant breaking the law. So when Mark started getting more violent, I knew I had to get out of there. I grabbed Liam and I ran. I had a plan to get to my parents in Germany, where I thought we'd be safe." She wiped her face again, taking a shaky breath. "But I couldn't get there without protection. I knew Mark had friends, dangerous people, who would come after us. I didn't have a weapon, but I needed one, for Liam's sake. So I bought the gun and I hid it under his blanket. It was the only way I could think of to protect him. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." Carter stood there listening intently. He could see the fear and the guilt in Emma's eyes, but it was clear now. She wasn't a criminal. She was a mother who had been pushed to the edge, forced to make an impossible decision to protect her child. The gun hadn't been meant to cause harm. It had been her only means of feeling safe. "I didn't want to hide it," Emma whispered, her voice breaking again. "But I had no other choice. I thought if I could just get to my parents, we could disappear, and everything would be okay. But then your dog, he found it. He knew. He knew I wasn't a criminal. Carter's heart softened as he looked at Emma. Rex's instincts had been right. The dog had sensed something deeper, something that no amount of training could have prepared him for. Rex hadn't just been looking for a gun, he had been looking for the truth. And now, standing here, Carter realized that Rex had saved not just a family, but a life. "I'm not a smuggler," Emma said again, this time with more confidence. "I didn't want any trouble. I just wanted to protect Liam." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Carter nodded, his gaze never leaving her. He could tell that Emma was being truthful, and he could see the strain in her face. She wasn't just apologizing for hiding the gun. She was apologizing for the years of fear she had lived with, the constant uncertainty about whether or not she would ever be free. As the police backup arrived to take Emma into custody, Carter made sure she was treated with respect. He knew that the story she had shared would not be an easy one to process, but it was one that had to be heard. Emma wasn't a criminal. She was a woman fighting for her child's safety, a mother who had been pushed too far. And in that moment, Carter realized something important. Sometimes the truth wasn't so clear-cut. Sometimes even the best of us made decisions out of desperation and love. And sometimes it took a dog with a sixth sense to uncover what no one else could see. 6 months had passed since that unforgettable night at the airport, and Officer Jake Carter couldn't help but think about the events that had transpired. What started as a routine customs check had quickly escalated into a life-altering situation for Emma Davis, her son Liam, and of course Rex, his loyal German shepherd. Despite all that had happened, there was one thing that remained clear in Carter's mind. Rex had saved a family. The phone call came on a quiet morning, breaking the peaceful rhythm of Carter's shift. It was from the Witness Protection Office, a place he had only ever heard of in TV shows and movies. He picked up the receiver, his curiosity piqued. "Hello? Officer Carter, this is Agent Stevens from Witness Protection," a calm voice said on the other end. "I'm calling to inform you that Emma Davis and her son are safe. They've been relocated and we've been able to provide them with a new life away from the dangers that threaten them." Carter felt a wave of relief wash over him, though he'd known Emma and Liam were in good hands. The finality of it all, however, gave him a sense of peace. The family who had been torn apart by fear and violence was now being given a chance to rebuild. "I'm glad to hear that," Carter said, his voice filled with gratitude. "And what about Rex? Can I see them again?" There was a slight pause, and Carter could hear the agent's careful tone. "We understand that you have a bond with both Emma and the dog. If you wish, we can arrange a visit for you to say your goodbyes before they disappear into their new life." Carter didn't hesitate for a second. "Please, I'd appreciate that." The following weekend, Carter found himself at the quiet, undisclosed location where Emma and Liam had been relocated. As he pulled up to the small house, the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft golden glow over the neighborhood. The peaceful suburban street looked nothing like the chaotic airport or the tension-filled customs area where everything had changed. It was a safe place, far removed from the fear and danger that had once defined Emma's life. Carter stepped out of his car and walked toward the door. When it opened, Emma stood before him, her eyes no longer filled with fear or anxiety. Instead, she greeted him with a warm, genuine smile that softened the lines of worry on her face. She had found peace. "Officer Carter," Emma said, her voice steady, "it's so good to see you again." "Good to see you too," Carter replied, his voice filled with the same warmth. He glanced down, and Liam, now 6 months older, peeked around his mother's legs with curious eyes. The little boy's face lit up as he recognized Carter, and he ran over to him with a giggle. "Hi," Liam said, his voice filled with excitement. Carter bent down, offering the boy a friendly smile. "Hey there, buddy, how's everything going?" "It's good," Liam grinned, holding up a drawing he had clearly just finished. "I made this for you." Carter chuckled and accepted the crumpled piece of paper, marveling at the colorful scribbles that filled the page. There were stick figures of a dog, a person, and a house, with a big sun in the corner. Carter couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat. Despite everything Emma had gone through, her son had found joy and comfort in his new life. Emma stepped forward, gently placing her hand on her son's shoulder. "He's been doing well," she said softly. "I think we're finally safe." "Thank you. for everything you did for us." Carter nodded, his heart swelling with pride. It was Rex, really. He's the one who saved you both. At the mention of Rex, Emma's face softened. She walked over to the side yard where a familiar German shepherd was lying under a tree, his tail thumping the ground as soon as he saw Carter. Rex's coat had regained its healthy shine, and he stood up, his ears perked, eyes bright and alert. "Rex," Carter called, his voice full of affection. The dog bounded over, tail wagging furiously, and jumped up to greet him. Carter leaned down to scratch Rex behind the ears, feeling the bond between them as if no time had passed. Rex licked his face in greeting, and Carter couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you, boy," Carter murmured, giving Rex a long, affectionate pat. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude toward the dog that had saved a family, a sense of peace that came from knowing that Emma and Liam were safe, because of Rex. Emma stepped forward, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. "You'll never know how much it means to us. You saved our lives, Officer Carter. And Rex, he's our hero." Carter looked at Emma, her words sinking in. For the first time, he realized that this wasn't just about doing his job. This was about making a difference, about helping people when they needed it most. It wasn't about the badge or the uniform. It was about the lives they touched along the way. "I just did my job," Carter said with a humble smile. "Rex did all the hard work." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Well, then we owe him everything." The goodbye was bittersweet. Carter knew that this would be the last time he saw Emma and Liam. But as he drove away, he felt a sense of fulfillment and pride. He had helped save a family, and Rex had shown him the power of instincts, loyalty, and love. As the sun set on the peaceful suburban street, Carter knew that, despite the challenges, Emma, Liam, and Rex had found a new beginning. And that was all that truly mattered.